Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of the Adventures of a Real Estate Investor. I'm Susie.
And I'm Michael, and we're excited you joined us for this adventure.
So today I'm super excited because I have another abundant sister with me. And it's perfect timing because I'm wearing my shirt. That was not supposed to be at the same time, but it was. But Annalie, thank you so much for joining us today.
Sure. Thank you so much for having me over.
Yeah, super excited. I just love, well, one, I love when women join us. I do love it when men join us too, but I just have so much more fun when women are on. So thanks.
Absolutely. So, you know a little bit about your background and stuff like that, but obviously our adventurous family does not. Would you mind sharing a little bit about your background and why you started investing in real estate?
Sure. First of all, I guess like important part of my story is I'm an immigrant to the United States. So back in 2005, my husband and I moved here from another country and kind of started over, had $3,000 that we borrowed and, came to this country with a dream like we all have here as immigrants. Slowly, but surely, I kind of progressed, worked through multiple kind of corporate jobs, but primarily worked for financial services and the pharmaceuticals, but always had that itch, right? You kind of hear about, how to escape the, rat race and everything else. So I think about five years ago, we started looking into investing in real estate. And my husband actually had some changes in his sort of work structure. It allowed him to have some time to start investing. And the first way we started was him just diving into flipping. And it happened to work out for him. And at that time, we sort of got a feel for investment. But fortunately for us as an adventure, but unfortunately for my husband as a real estate investment, I was offered an opportunity to go to Switzerland with my corporate job. So we all moved into Switzerland for 4 years. But then it kind of came out as a very great opportunity because we figured out how to do it from overseas. So he continued flipping. And as I was coming here for business trips to the United States, here and there, I was just dabbing into, we should probably buy a rental. So on one of my business trips, I just happened to buy a rental. And like that's how we were sort of slowly, casually buying rentals. And he continued to flip. He just had some boots on the ground here. And sort of like that's how we started. And then eventually it just kind of progressed in all other avenues of real estate.
That's cool. So, that's really cool that you set up a whole system and all the processes but in order to continue to flip, which is pretty big and there's a lot of moving pieces in that. I'd love to dive into that in a little bit, but it sounds like, the long-term strategy was, more buy and hold stuff, for the long-term passive income and wealth building and stuff like that. And the flipping was more just like an active income job, right? And I'm assuming you probably weren't buying flips that you could, hold for a long period of time. Maybe they're higher end flips.
Right. Yeah. So I think now that we know way more, definitely the flips was supposed to be sort of like the cash that we can then pour over the rentals. But I feel like everyone just starts in real estate somehow, right? Some people start in wholesaling, some people start in short-term rentals, and some people just buy commercial off like from the beginning. I'm just thinking that however you start, eventually sort of you understand all the ice cream flavors, right? And then you understand what's what, right? Like what serves a different purpose. So yes, now for sure, flipping is just sort of that cash influx to our portfolio of rentals. And, because we'll leave some down payment in the rental. We try to cash out as much as possible because we always kind of buy value add. But still you leave a little bit here. And so, yeah, we have a combination of passive and active.
Cool. So you say value add rental. So, assuming you're doing like the BRRRR process or whatever, right?
Yes. We're almost like Bigger Pockets University. Understand all of the terms. Yeah. So all of that honestly came to us from that. I've been actively listening and just kind of like talking to my husband about it. I've heard this. And actually because of this, I started hearing more about wholesaling. And when I was still in Switzerland, I think on my last year of the assignment, I created a company, started wholesaling from overseas. Wow. And I hired a couple of virtual assistants to help me out with cold calling and, just having some marketing support. But overall, I feel like we're just kind of dabbing into everything. By now, we also dabbed into short-term rentals. So we kind of like, having everything, but probably, large multifamilies, which sort of probably is the next step for us.
That's cool.
So I'm amazed that you did a few strategies while living overseas. One, so that's how Michael and I started, and we love it. But you used VAs. Can you explain, like, besides, I guess, cold calling, what else did they help you do? Because they can help a business a lot. And I don't think a lot of people realize that. Like, so many people think like, oh, I need to have a business established first so I can pay them to do all the things. But how can you use them in a way of like, okay, now as you grow, you need them because then you can focus on what you need to focus on while they are doing all the tasks that really, that you don't want to do.
Exactly. I didn't actually have any other way to do that because I was working full time. I had a 6-hour difference between the United States and Switzerland. So I had to have some people right away, right? My sort of first test way of marketing was cold calling. So my virtual assistants would help me with pulling the data. You have to massage the data too in order to upload into the systems, whether you use a dialer or even before you upload it to the dialer, you just need to evaluate your data for some sort of discrepancies, consistency. So, by just having the SOPs, and training them, just recording quick Loom videos, the more that I've learned myself, the easier it became to just outsource it, right? So I just kind of like parse it. I learned just one little piece, but it was fast enough that within a day I could just outsource it to a virtual assistant. So it kind of started as they were just calling. Then it progressed with data pulling. Then it was progressing into just sometimes you have to pull data out of county records and it's just like copy and pasting. And then I asked them to learn how to create a bot that would just kind of record the transactions and just copy and paste. So it's whatever you want it to be. Eventually I started using my virtual assistants in all other businesses that I kind of opened since then. And it's anything. It's your admin task. It's the social media management. It's bookkeeping. A lot of them are just, QuickBooks certified. You just don't even realize how sort of extensive that geographical arbitrage is and the vastness of knowledge and the skill set that virtual assistants have. And funny enough, because of my wholesaling adventure, I became so good at hiring. I started kind of like giving a lot of information within my GoBundance bot. And one time I just remember I just went through this list of like what to do, what to ask, which form to fill out, how to post a job, and all of these kind of nitty-gritty details. And one of my friends in the pod, she's like, how much do I owe you? And I was like, what are you talking about? She's like, this is solid information. You have to create a course or something like that. So only because she said it. I never thought that there's something out there, right? But sometimes your friends point out some skill set that you don't even know that you have. So I recorded a course, put it out there. It just without any sort of like marketing out there, it just started selling. And I'm like, maybe I do have something there. So eventually it progressed. People just came back and said, you helped me a lot with your course. Now I don't even have time for that. Can you help me just source and use your systems and whatever? So I opened a new company that just now, helps people and business owners source virtual assistants. So it's kind of like all progressed like a step by step. We started with flips, but I never knew I'll end up here.
That's cool. I'm assuming you hired virtual assistants in order to source other virtual assistants, right?
Yes. So they follow all of my protocols. Yes. It's just as long as you put the systems in place, then I have a team in Philippines right now. And we even expanded beyond the Philippines. We now source from Latin America, testing out South Africa as well.
That's cool. Yeah, I mean,
like literally,
yeah. And I'm assuming you've read the book Who Not How, right?
Yes. I think that's probably the only reason I'm able to do so much, because sometimes I'm like just so many items that I'm responsible for, but I'm just so happy for the right team that I have, and they're just absolutely amazing. And I think part of this too, like as long as you set up the right leadership for the people that work for you, they're just going to show up for like every day and wanted to do more and wanted to learn more. So I think that's probably one of the best things that I've ever learned in my corporate career too, right? I'm not going to sort of bash on everything about the corporate. I've learned a lot of management throughout my adventure there. And by the way, last year I retired from my corporate job, which is very exciting. But yes, I've learned a lot to treat my employees as, a part of my team, even though they're very, very far away from me, and they're just stepping up every single day.
That's cool. Yeah, that's awesome. So, I mean, highly recommend. Obviously, what Anna's doing is amazing, having virtual assistants for everything, just about. I mean, and if you want more information about Who Not How is written by, well, the idea of it was from Dan Sullivan, I believe, right? And but it was ghost written by somebody else, of course, because that is
Ben Hardy.
Yeah.
I think.
Who, epitomizes of whatever, like Who Not How. Basically, by the time you're done reading that book, you're going to want to outsource somebody to brush your teeth for you. But it sounds like Anna has this whole thing nailed down. And it's,
Hey, I'm outsourcing sometimes Christmas shopping to my virtual assistants too. I mean, it just, every time I'm just like, how can I outsource even more?
Outsourcing, were you able to try different real estate strategies? Was that a big help? Because, a lot of people, they say they have shiny object syndrome where they want to try something new, but like there is a long time frame of like being able to get some of that done. Can virtual assistants help you like try a new area faster? I mean, I know education is like priceless, but I'm just kind of curious about that.
Sure. I'll give you an example of me starting with short-term rentals. I have no knowledge in short-term rentals. There was just an opportunity that I couldn't pass by to buy a 2-unit in New Jersey Shore. So we ended up hiring a virtual assistant who knew more than we did. And it was amazing. I love hiring people that know more than I do.
Yeah.
And he came on board and he just from the get-go, in order for you to combine Vrbo and Airbnb, you can use a third-party portal, right? Like Guesty or Hospitable, whatever it is, right? For a lot of the hosts right now, this is just like second knowledge. But for people who just started, it's like you don't really know. How do you combine it? Can you create a parent-child relationship between your properties? And there's a lot of lessons learned from our virtual assistant. At some point, you're probably going to catch up to them and outgrow them too, right? So like they kind of give you enough information, but they sort of like stop within their area and they're great at their area, and that's where they stop. And now you go to the next step and you're like, oh, now I can add a new strategy. And then this is where you now have learned enough and gave it back to them and go and execute it, right? So I think what virtual assistant critically allows you to do is to sort of learn and then strategize, right? There's a lot of people when we work in the business, there's just no time. Like there's no time to think about that next idea. How can you improve your business? How can you grow your business? So definitely they help me first, and then I help them to sort of like exceed their expectations. The other example too, when I launched my website for my wholesaling company, it's an example of me sort of not listening to my VA. It was an SEO specialist who is optimizing your search engine on Google and, other search engines. And there are a few key pieces of information he was telling me to do. And I was like, no, my market is this. And I was kind of going after a very small market, right? But SEO works. You have to kind of target like a major city and make it more available for yourself and stand out. And I knew like, I acted like I knew better, right? So it's another lesson for me. If I hire a specialist, like I just have to listen to them, right? So I came back with that lesson and I said, I'm sorry, you were right. Let's restart. But I probably lost 3 to 4 months not listening to the person. But, in the end, it all worked out. But yeah, I like to hire specialists in what they do, because then they help me expedite my learning.
That's really cool.
Yeah. And that's really key, right? Is like hiring a specialist, like for a couple of reasons. But the biggest one that stands out to me is that in our stories, like about our video editor, I mean, the stuff he comes up with like his creativity blows my mind. It's never stuff I would have thought of, right? Like, even if you think you have an idea in your head, and it is very valid, I'm not saying that it's not, but like when you hire someone for that task, like do give them the opportunity to shine. Because if they like, yes, there are bad apples out there, but there are bad apples everywhere, like it just happens if you get one or not. But like they do really want these opportunities. They really do want to shine. And they will come up with stuff. I mean, just like what you were saying, Anna, and you're like, like part of us wants to think like, does this person actually know more than me? Yes. A lot of people know more than us, and that's okay, but it makes such a big difference when you let them shine.
For sure. I just feel like the only thing that we are, we need to be sort of like aware of is that as leaders, we just need to set the vision and sort of guide them, right? And that let them be them. It's almost like a little bit of like the same as raising children, right? You don't want to sort of like tell them what to do. You want them to be independent. You want them to learn on their own, but you want to kind of create that motivation, inspiration, and sort of set the guide for them and the path.
Yeah, I totally believe in that. Like, yeah, I say this often is like you could, for a property management company, because we own large multifamilies, right? We asset manage them. And like a lot of people are like, manage the manager, manage the manager. I was like, it's not manage. You lead them by, like you said, giving them the vision, the business plan, the outline of the business plan, and let them execute, right? Because they know what they're doing, right? And so I always say like lead, don't manage. So
Exactly. Love that. I'm
yeah.
going to steal that phrase.
Please do. Another thing that I kind of want to key in on that you said a couple moments ago was like creating time, right? And by hiring assistants and things like that, you can create so much time because it's very, very important as a business owner in order to schedule, block schedule time just to sit and think, right? I mean, most of the time as business owners, we're always checking our email. We're a slave to our email every single day. We're like answering emails all day long, right? Or like trying to knock out small tasks, right? We're like, and then you get to the end of the day and you're like, oh, cool, I feel accomplished, but did I really move the business forward, right? Because you don't have that time freedom in order to sit and think. And I think it's very important to hire people who can do menial tasks that take up a lot of your time, and so that you can focus and schedule time, block out time on your schedule in order just to think about your business and the vision of your business so you can move it forward in the right direction.
Yep, totally agree with that.
What is one thing that like a VA has outsourced for you that you never thought you would outsource besides Christmas shopping?
My father is sick right now, and I had to find an urgent way to find like not an infusion center, but like he needed vitamin C with like intravenous, and he needed a lot of it for a continuous amount of time. So I knew about one center, probably 30 minutes drive from us. And I think it was quite expensive if he were to, start and go there a few times a week for a long time. And I just asked my VA and I said, hey, look for anything like natural doctors or holistic providers or infusion centers and call all of them within the 25 radius of my house. And then find out how much do they charge per session. Do they offer any discounts if it's more than 10? Is there any, initial doctor visit that's required, or can he just like walk in, whatever? So there's just a table set up for him in 2 hours. In 2 hours, I had the table full of information, and all I had to do find the closest and the cheapest. And it just absolutely saved me so much time, because for me, even if I were to do it myself and dedicated 2 hours, I feel like I would have probably still get distracted and not complete that task. But I'm just thinking like this is a kind of a life thing that I needed for myself and for my father, right? And it was just nice to be able to have that information readily available. And he was able to find something that was twice cheaper than, what we knew that was available within 30 minutes away from us. Plus they offered a concierge service. I would never knew that this information sort of exists, right? So it's almost like whenever we do allow us a time to think, right? Like Wonder was one of those books too, like just kind of, ask yourself a question, either like what's next, or what's my next idea, like what else, or what if, right? And then using that and then just having somebody else going and executing. I think that's amazing. But yeah, that's one of the examples that's completely outside of my business related tasks, but very relevant for me. And, of course, my father was super appreciative for the help.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah, and thank you for sharing that, because that's even a vulnerable thing to share. So I appreciate that. But
Of course,
even like I'm thinking about that, like, oh, okay, like if I were to have to do that, I think it'd be the same. Like it would have been more than 2 hours. I don't know if I would have put together like a super nice table that I can reference back, right? I'm going to like write everything down on my iPad. And then we do get distracted the whole time, whether it's like with another phone call, if it's with an email, with like, say we had a meeting, and then another meeting back to back. Like, although you said like, oh, it took, 2 hours later, I got that. Like, we have no idea what your schedule looked like, right? Like might not have been able to get to it until the next day or the day after that. Like that is the power. And then you can, because like if I were to think about that all day and even the next day, if I couldn't do it right away, like that wears on your soul. Like it doesn't really matter what the task is. It's going to continue to wear on your soul because you're going to just keep thinking about it, right? Like, although people are like, okay, write it down, and you might not think about it anymore. Like I'm super happy for people who can do that. I cannot. Like once it's in my brain, it's there until it's done. And so like you do free up a lot of space, like in any which way.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah, because I would have been sitting on this task for days because I personally hate making calls, right? So there's this innate factor that's already blocking me to do this. but I love my father and I want to help him, right? So then it would be a double whammy where I'm not doing it, but I'm also feeling guilty. And like every day, it would have been like a vicious cycle of, why am I not doing this? Like I have to do this. I have to help him. But yes, having somebody else to just do this and kind of like whenever I have something like that, I always started with premise. So I have a random ask and like they're not surprised anymore because, it's always something like that.
Yeah, that's cool.
That is cool.
I have a question. So I guess what I'm trying to ask is, what is the most common kind of task that people, clients of yours like need to get VAs for?
Yeah, I think it just depends on the industry. Even within real estate, it's so interesting. So I'll only cover real estate. I'm not going to talk about, let's say, like medical offices or just standard businesses that are just different industries. In real estate specifically, you can have different niches, right? So in short-term rentals, people are looking for somebody who has experience managing short-term rentals.
Okay.
In wholesaling, most often than not, they need callers and texters.
Mm-hmm.
In property management, they need somebody who also had experience in property management, right? Maintaining the different calls and calling maintenance people. I have land investors and they're looking for very specific tasks. So they may be looking for somebody who knows how to text through launch control because that seems to be a software that they use a lot. Yeah, so it's very specific to a different type of industry, and even within the industry, people are looking for a lot of different tasks. But generally speaking, social media comes up a lot because a lot of people sort of want to do it. They know that they need to do it, but it's the same thing, right? It's just kind of like one of those tasks that, just like, yeah, I have to schedule this or whatever, right? So when they have somebody there, they know that they're going to be working that consistently, right? And I think in any business, consistency is the key. So I think that they're trying to outsource most of the time, consistently working on whatever, marketing, sales, disposition, acquisition, just you name it. But as long as there's a consistency that they know that they're going to be growing.
Cool.
That's neat. And just to let you know, when people have other people helping them, they grow faster.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I guess if somebody's looking to, let's say they want to hire like an executive assistant, right? Somebody to help them out with like every day, like be their right-hand person. What recommendations would you have for somebody who's interested in something like that? Or how do they get started?
Actually, we have, from the application rates, I'll give you kind of general statistics. When my team submits the job posting everywhere online, we get about 50 to 100 candidates on average.
Wow.
And then my team sort of reviews all of them and only interviews about 25 to 30, only to then present top 3 candidates to the customer. So within the executive assistant role, we probably have 200 applicants, just to show you the amount of people who want to be in that role. I think that sometimes people shy away, when I say people, virtual assistants shy away from the role that is on the phones. And I think the reason for that is specifically in Philippines, they all started about 15 years ago with call centers. That's how they all sort of started and transitioned and then become a virtual assistant. So some of them are naturally good at this and they want to continue to be in it, but that number is less often than somebody to become an executive assistant, right? Because what executive assistant is doing, they're almost like their own sort of, they work for you, but they are managing everything themselves, right? You know what I mean? Like they take over all of your tasks, you give them the instructions, but they still sort of have that flexibility and how they're sort of like managing it, and they feel more at ease and more responsible. There's this, sort of like an ongoing feedback with, you completed the task and then you move on to the next one. So within the executive assistant, I just wanted to tell you that's probably the most popular role out there and the most amount of people apply. So we don't ever have a hard time finding the executive kind of administrative assistant. Now the question that becomes, what type of executive are you, right? Because some people just like, hey, I just need you to, I don't know, like manage my schedule or respond to all of my emails, right? So if you notice, some people don't ever respond to their emails, only dealing through assistants, and that's purposeful, right? So they don't get distracted, right? And others have a totally different structure for their sort of, interaction with their EAs. So, going back to this again, there are a lot of choices out there. And I think there are a lot of EAs for different levels of the leaders as well too.
Love that.
I do too.
And I just have a follow-up question to that. Like what, on average, I know it depends on the person and the jobs and job titles over there. Like on average, like what can somebody expect to pay for an executive assistant per hour, I guess?
I think on average, VA from Philippines would probably be between $5 to $6 an hour. Our agency does take the fee for sourcing. It's a one-time fee placement, and they work with you directly. And then I think if you want a high caliber, right, an executive assistant that had an experience maybe more than 5 years, you could technically go to the levels of maybe like $8, $9. But generally speaking, we see 5 to 6, and we source quite a lot of people at that rate.
Okay.
Very cool. Thank you for explaining all of that, because a lot is going through my mind now.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely.
No, if you've never worked with an executive assistant before, I'd say that even starting with somebody who only has about a year or 2 or 3 of experience is actually even better, because then sometimes I see with people that are hiring EAs, they themselves sometimes don't even know, like, what else can I outsource, right? So I always tell them, make a list left and right. And on the left, write everything that is a $10 task. And on the right side, write everything that's a $200 task. And then the next question that follows normally, but what about in between? I say, you would know it right away. There is no in between. It's either a $200 task or a 10. So you kind of put it in, and then everything in the $10 task, that's what you outsource. And then you guys will just kind of get used to what you need. And your EA is basically learning with you and what they need to do. So the key ingredient that we look for EAs is just the fast learner.
Very cool. Thank you for sharing all of that.
That's awesome.
Of course.
This is great conversation.
Yeah.
I want to continue talking. Unfortunately, we are moving towards the end of the show, Anna, which brings us to our adventurous 4. These are 4 exploratory questions we ask all of our guests. So Anna, if you are ready, we'll begin the questions.
Sure, I'm ready.
Cool. So the first question we have for you is, where is one place you wish to travel to and why?
Ooh, so many places. And I've been to so many places too. I think probably first thing that comes to mind is Bali. Not only for the nature and the food, but my stepdaughter went to Bali a few years ago, and she had $5 massages 3 times a day. And this is like a pet peeve of mine. I'd like to have massages constantly. So I probably pick that just for that. And if I were to go there, I'll explore, but I will have massage in the morning, right before my breakfast, and then the evening after I hiked or did whatever I wanted to.
That sounds really lovely.
Yeah, that sounds great. I'm going to do that as well.
That's
I'll
awesome.
pay for massages all day long.
Right?
How long is a day long massage?
Yeah, how long is a day long, or how much?
$50.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, probably.
Massage.
Yes.
Yeah.
I've never heard of anyone saying that by the end of it all, I was tired of all these massages, but that's what she said. I want to be able to say that.
Right. I like that a lot. Second question is, what is something on your bucket list, and how are you leveraging real estate investing to achieve it?
Ooh, bucket list. I guess something that's sort of like on my mind and very much reachable, but it's still on my bucket list. I want to sort of relive an experience that my dad and I had once by accident. We went to inquire about pilot school. He just wanted to see like how much the lesson cost or whatever. It was just kind of like one day randomly about 15 years ago. We ended up flying propeller planes that same day. Just it was probably some like one of those tricks like, would you like to fly a plane? And then we'll sign you up for classes. It was very amazing experience, and I want to kind of recreate that with my father again, probably on a different kind of plane. So I'm actually working on making that happen once it becomes a little bit warmer here, once the winter is over. And I think real estate, just in general, that I quit my job and I was able to just be on my schedule. And I know that, whenever, the airport nearby is available, and let it be Tuesday afternoon, I know that I'll be available. So that's probably what made it happen for me. And real estate definitely boosted it up.
I love that.
Awesome. Yeah.
It is. He'll be so excited.
Yeah. Absolutely. So
For
the
sure.
third question, I'm going to change it up a little bit for you. So what is one piece of advice for someone who wants to start to involve virtual assistants in their business?
I would say start with that list. just know what you want to outsource first and highlight what that sort of like hero skill set is needed for that person. Because sometimes I have clients come over and saying, "Oh, I need an executive virtual assistant." And when I ask them, so talk to me, like tell me more what you want to outsource. And sometimes we just end up in a completely different territory. They just need maybe an Excel specialist that would just crank the data every single day, right? And if I were to just post it an executive virtual assistant, it would be a totally different person, right? So we want to make sure that we align what exactly is that needed to be accomplished with the right role, so that people are not disappointed with who they hired. So I would say probably start with, even before you even thinking about that you need to outsource, what's that task that just like nagging? I gave you an example. I really don't like making calls. Is this something that you need to do on a daily basis? Do you need to source leads on a daily basis? Do you need to sell emails, or do you need to do a lot of copying and pasting? Whatever it is that is annoying you so much, but is very much needed for your business, I'd say kind of think about that, make that list of 10 versus 200 and start with that.
Cool.
Yeah, that's great advice. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I just love that. Sorry. I'm just like so excited. I just want to tell like so many people, that I like that are in my groups be like we listen to this podcast. I love it. Thank you. But our fourth and final question is, if you had unlimited resources available to you, how would you leave an impact?
I actually lived through that sort of like thought as I'm dreaming on a daily basis. I probably would want to impact small business owners as much as I can. I do not believe in charity. I do not believe in just giving people money or, anything of that nature, because I just feel like it just develops laziness. I'd love to support small business owners in any way possible, whether it's education, whether it's just an opportunity to invest in them and allow them to grow their idea and whatever it could be. So definitely, education in different areas of the world, not just necessarily United States. I've lived in different places of the world. So, love to go back to my home country and provide that opportunity for them. And children's education, just financial awareness overall, business awareness. I feel like I benefited a lot from my dad being very entrepreneurial. And, the age of 7, I started my first car washing enterprise, if you want to call it this way. But I want to be able to sort of like inspire kids and support business owners in their dreams, because then they will create jobs and they will create future for a lot of other people. So it's kind of ripple effect.
I like that ripple, because the ripple is always the most important part, right? It's like, okay, well, there's this person, but then what does this person to like their web, and then after that. So I appreciate
Exactly.
it. Thank you.
Yeah.
Of course.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's been an absolute pleasure having you on the show, and it's a great conversation. I hope our Ventures family took a lot away from this. Before we end the show, would you mind sharing with our listeners where they can get a hold of you, reach out to you?
Sure. You can reach out to me either via email, Anna@outsourceyourtasks.com, or just my website, outsourceyourtasks.com. Yeah, I'd love to, just chat. And if you ever schedule a free, consultation call, I just love talking to people. I love talking to business owners and just like having them that cha-ching moment, like, oh my gosh, yes, I realized that. So I'd love to connect with as many people as possible.
Perfect.
Yeah. And thank you. I'll make sure to put those in the show notes so that our listeners can find you easily. But again, Anna, thank you so much for coming on today. It's truly been a pleasure.
Of course. Thank you for having me.
For sure. So until next time, explore more, adventure awaits.